We desire to know the best way to live. Restored Church exists to help people find hope and healing through a new life with Jesus. But what does life with Jesus look like on a day-to-day basis? In Proverbs, we see that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Trusting in God is the start of wise living. God directs our thoughts, feelings, and actions. We're living wisely when we make sure our heart is focused on God. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." When we pay attention to our heart and make sure we're focused on God, we are beginning to live the wise life. What does life with Jesus look like on a day-to-day basis? The wise life starts with trusting God and examining our heart to make sure we're focused on Him. In Proverbs, we see God's guide for wise living.
How about now? There we go. So, believe it or not, after that snafu, I took some public speaking classes in college, even advanced public speaking. And in advanced public speaking, they said to make sure that you're pre-hydrated before you speak, because taking sips of water while you're talking is highly unprofessional. But they didn't know how hot it was outside. Also, in public speaking class, they said, maybe you took one in high school or something, and they said at the beginning you need to do like an attention getter, something to grab the audience attention, like tell a story or something. And I couldn't come up with a story for today, but Jesus has a really good story in Luke 10, and so I'm actually going to start off with him telling his story. And how it happens is there's this expert in the law. You know, he's like a Pharisee. He thinks he knows everything. He's high-ranking, religious, da-da-da-da-da. And he's trying to trap Jesus. He's like, Jesus, what's like the most important stuff? And Jesus says to love God and to love your neighbor. And then he wants to get out of actually loving people. So then he tries to say, well, who's your neighbor? And this is how Jesus replies. In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Now, this is a really popular Bible passage. There's nonprofit organizations named like the Good Samaritan and things like that. This is a really popular. And what Jesus is saying is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you look like. What matters is if you are able to show mercy and take care of people. And that's like, so if to know the history, the priest and the Levite, those were like the good people, the good people. And so you would have expected them to do the right thing, but they didn't. The Samaritan, the bad person, is who ended up doing it. And that was what Jesus' point was, that it doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. What matters is if you show mercy on them. And so a lot of times the idea behind this passage is correct, but it can be kind of taken sometimes maybe out of context and in a way that's actually not helpful. So the idea in here, it's not about your actual physical neighbor. It's about everyone. Love everyone. And while that's true, I'm not going to argue to not love everyone. I just think sometimes people have used this idea of loving everyone to get away and not actually love anyone. Especially in a social media era and time period, there's all these causes going on. So you can post for this cause and this group of people and this and this and that. And while all those things are good, they're not bad. But a lot of times we can think oh, I'm doing this thing for those people out there. But you know who is included in everyone? The people that literally live next door. The people that literally live across the street. The people you literally interact with is included in everyone. It's not just all the people out there. I love everyone, all the people out there. Love the actual people too. The actual people that you engage with, like the person in this story is engaging with a real person that he actually encounters. And so, that is what we are talking about today, is your actual neighbors. The people that live across the street, behind you, to the left and right, your actual neighbors. It's coming out of the series that we're doing is in the book of Proverbs. If you've been with us for the last 3 weeks, you've already heard a lot about it. And if not, welcome to our Proverbs series. There's some ideas in Christianity, or about Christianity. Maybe you haven't gone to church very often. Maybe you're new to it or whatever. And you think, Christianity is just like this spiritual thing. I actually had a friend like in middle school and high school. He would make fun of Christianity, saying like, it's just singing, "Oh, Jesus loves me" songs. He would actually make jokes about it. It was really funny. And that there is a truth that there is a spiritual side of Christianity, a relational connection between you and God. And there is also a very practical part of Christianity, a very real life, real tangible how to live in this world that God created. And so Proverbs is actually a book where it's like the whole thing is just talking about practical wisdom, how to navigate this life, God's advice on how to make your life better, how to make other people's lives better. And that's what we're doing in Proverbs. And actually Proverbs is helpful. When I was in middle school, we had these late start Wednesdays, and so then I would go with my youth pastor to Brooklyn Bagel, and I actually started reading these Proverbs when I was a middle schooler, and my life is so much better because of it. I cannot express to you how you read through the book of Proverbs and you're like, oh wow, that's smart. Oh wow, that makes sense. That's really helpful. Read Proverbs. It is really good for you. It's really good for your life, and I'm thankful that I did that when I was a kid. So we're not kids. Well, some of us here are kids, but not all of us. But we can start learning this wisdom right now today. And so our theme verses for this whole series is Proverbs 1:7. It's in the beginning of the book. So this says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." And that first part of it, the fear of the Lord, is a really interesting thing to think about. Because a lot of times we think, you hear God is loving, so why would I fear him? And yes, God is loving, but he's also a person that we should take great reverence, awe, and fear with. If you think about it, think about meeting the biggest top dog in your area or expertise of life. Say that you were a football quarterback and you had to go meet Jared Goff. You would be a little bit nervous. You'd have a little bit of fear. Or say that you're an engineer and then you're going to meet the top engineer in the world. I don't even know who it was. Or, do you know? Elon Musk, say, hypothetically. Whatever it was, you would have a little bit of fear, awe, and reverence in that. But it's even further than that. It is even further than that. Getting ready for this message, I was reading a lot about what does the fear of the Lord mean. And there was a couple examples that I really liked. There was in Romans 11, we don't have a slide for it, but it was talking about how this group of people, they grew cold-hearted, they turned away from God. But not us, because we fear God. And so there's an idea of fearing him to the point where we would not run away from him. And a good example of this was there was a dad and his little boy. They were going to borrow a tool from a friend that had a dog. So they pull up in the truck and they see the guy and the dog and the tool. And the boy comes out and the dog's really nice to him, wagging the tail, and he pets the dog, da-da-da-da-da. But then the dad is like, "Oh, hey, we forgot this back in the truck, the payment." So then the boy runs away from the dog, and the dog starts barking and chases him down intensely, barking, and the boy gets really scared of the dog. He fears him. But come to find out, the dog was not mad at the boy. The dog is just a protective dog, and when he saw the boy running away from him, he thought that the boy was running to danger, and so the dog was trying to protect him. And the boy should have been fearful. But the idea is that with God, we fear him in the sense that he's there to protect us, and we do not want to run away from him. I thought that was one interesting way of thinking about the fear of God. And another one I think was even more interesting. So he was talking about rock climbing. And then he saw a storm coming in, and he was like, oh shoot, if I'm on the edge of this cliff when this storm comes in, that's going to be a big problem. And the storm kind of represented the wrath of God, because we do want God to be mad about sin, right? If somebody hurts your children, you're like mad about that. The same is true. We want God to be mad about sin. Sin is if we hurt his children. And so then in that rock climber saw the storm coming, and he decided to climb up and down into a crevice cave type thing that would protect him. And then he was able to see the storm pass through. Because he was scared of it, he made a wise decision. And there was, in verses in Nehemiah and Philippians, it talks about taking delight in the fear of the Lord and working out our salvation with fear and trembling. And taking refuge in the cave is like us taking refuge in God's grace from the storm that is God's wrath. God's wrath is coming. But when we place our faith in Jesus, we can take refuge in that and be protected from that. And so that is kind of the idea of the fear of the Lord, is that he's serious. There is wrath coming, but Jesus has provided grace, and he can protect us. And like the dog, he wants to protect us. And so we can come to him not cowardly, but with some reverence, awe, and fear. And so if you are wise, if you want to learn how to be good at life, if you want to learn how to navigate this life that God created, have a healthy fear of the Lord. It will give you a beginning of wisdom and knowledge. But if you want to be fool, other places in Proverbs where it says this, instead of fool, it just uses like stupid. So if you want to be a fool, if you want to be stupid, then ignore his instruction. Ignore everything in Proverbs. If you want to be a fool, just ignore it. That's yours. If you despise wisdom and instruction, you despise like someone telling you what to do, you might be a fool. Jeff Foxworth, you might be a redneck if blah, 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 blah. Well, you might be a fool if you despise wisdom and instruction. And so, that being said, that's the whole idea in the book of Proverbs, and that's what we're getting after. So, today we're going to talk about neighbors, but I'm going to really quickly run through the previous 3 weeks that we've had. So, week 1 was friends. This is in Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise. A companion of fools suffers harm. The basic idea here is, if you want to go somewhere in life, if you want to be someone in life, be with the kind of people that you want to be like as your most core group. Now, this does not mean ignore everyone else who's not like you. Be mean to people who are not like you. That's not what I'm saying. The idea is that your most core group of friends, who have the most influence on your life, make sure that those are people headed the direction that you want to head. That was the idea with your friends in Proverbs 13:20. Don't be too close and a companion of fools. Week 2, anger. Boom, here we go. An angry person stirs up conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins. You guys all know that there's someone in your life, maybe it was even you, where they let their anger take control and they made a bad decision and something bad happened. Yes, that happens. So, in that, you are allowed to feel anger. God created anger. It is okay to feel that way. But in that moment, do not let your anger control you. You control the anger and you make the decision with it. You don't let anger control you, and then you'll regret something. Week 3, which was last week, contentment. And here was the verse for last week. Cast a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. The idea here is don't wear yourself out earning earthly materials and belongings. Not that it's bad to have money, not that it's sinful to have a nice vehicle, none of that. But what is a problem is if you put your hope in that and you strive and you wear yourself out for that, it's going to be gone. You're either going to lose it on this earth or you're going to pass away and not have it anymore. So the idea is to be content with what you have because we have everything that we need in Jesus. And so, that is all the review. And now it is time to talk about being a neighbor. And so we're going to look at 3 different verses in Proverbs that talk about being a neighbor and being a good neighbor, a wise neighbor. Now, a lot of times when talking about neighbors at church, we talk about evangelism, trying to convince them to believe in and follow Jesus. And that is very crucial and very important. That is not the purpose of today's sermon. So I won't be really addressing that. So I'm sure if you're wondering, why didn't he talk about that? Well, it's not the point of today's sermon. Today's sermon is mostly just like how to have wise living, practical, be a good neighbor type stuff. So we're going to start off with Proverbs 3, 27 and 29. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, come back later, I'll give it tomorrow, when you now have it with you. Do not plot harm against your neighbor who lives trustfully near you. So the idea of if you have it in your power to act and you don't do it, you say to your neighbor, come back later, is quite an apathetic response to your neighbor. And I actually experienced this one time. So last year, me and Elizabeth, we actually moved twice. We moved once we moved out of our place we were renting into a rental, and then like really quickly after bought a house. And so during our first move, it was into like a duplex where there was two units in the same house. And so when we went to look at it, we were like, oh, sweet. We signed the lease. We talked to the neighbors in the other unit. And the guy came out and he was like, oh, man, I'm so excited you guys are moving in. You guys seem like you're going to be really cool, really fun. If there's anything at all that you need, just let me know. I'd love to help you. If you need help moving, if you need help with this or that, like just let me know. I'd love to help you. And I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. That's really cool. And so then during the process of moving, I did have a lot of help for some of the days, but there was a day that I was moving and I didn't really have help. And I saw his car was in the driveway and he was home and I was like, oh, sweet, he offered to help. So I went and knocked on his door and I was like, hey, it would be really cool if you could help me unload this truck and I can get a Scribs or Glenside Pub pizza. It was just off Glenside, so I want Glenside Pub pizza. And he literally goes, oh, no, I don't really like pizza, and I'd probably just get in the way anyway. And then he went back in the place, and while I was unloading stuff, I saw through his window, he was just sitting on the couch. And I was like, dude, what in the world is your problem? He clearly had the ability to help. He even said that he would help, and then he just cared so little that he just wouldn't do it. If you're watching this on the internet, man, sorry I'm talking bad about you, but you probably should have helped me. So the point, what I see, like the point of this passage, I mean, it just start caring. Just like have a base level of care for your neighbor. I have a slide for that. And when you care, then you will do good. You don't even have to be like Superman neighbor. Like just have some base level of care to where like if your neighbor knocked on your door to ask for something that you could clearly do, just do it. Help your neighbor. And I think part of just caring is you also have to know them. Like you have to give some level or effort to get to know them in some way. Now I'm not saying, like maybe you're an introvert, and so I'm not saying you have to host every party and you have to be like, come on over, we're grilling this, da 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 da. I'm not necessarily saying that, but you do have to give some level of effort to know them so you can care about them. Like say if you were gonna care for your kid, but then you just did nothing, didn't even talk to him. Like that's not caring. And so if you're gonna care about your neighbor, you have to at some level get to know them. It's also really funny. I'm not saying this to brag about what me and my brother did this last week, but my sister just moved up from Tennessee to Michigan, and me and Samuel, we flew down to Tennessee, loaded the biggest U-Haul truck that they had available in the Tennessee heat, and drove it back up, and then unloaded it into 2 storage units. And this guy couldn't even get off his couch to help. That's crazy. Just start by caring. And you also, even if you just start by caring, you also don't know how much that's going to matter to the person. At my house, if I'm looking at my house, my neighbor to the right, it's this really nice lady named Jan. And so, not this Jan, but different Jan. And on that side of the house, so me and Elizabeth wanted to fence in our backyard. We have a lot of friends with dogs. We have a lot of friends with kids and all this stuff. And it would be really nice if it was just fenced in, because then you can let the kids go, you can let the dogs go. And I wasn't exactly sure where the property line was. And so I went and knocked on the door and I was like, hey, Jan, I have a question for you. Can you come look at this? So I'm looking at building a fence and I'm just not really sure exactly where to put it. And then she literally broke down crying, and I was like, whoa, this is just a fence. What's going on? And she said, you put it wherever you want. I just can't believe someone cared enough to ask me. And I know that that's kind of silly about a fence. Like, I get that that's like a little overkill. But the fact is, if you just care about someone and just be nice and decent, just care, you don't know how far that's going to go with that person. Like, they might really need someone that cares about them. So just start caring and do good when the opportunity comes. One more example on this, and then we'll go to our next verse. My neighbors to the left, if you're looking at my house, they're to the left. And Kevin, he works in a, he I don't know exactly what he does, but it has something to do with reading books to kids who have been abused. And so he has a huge excess of books. And he heard me and Elizabeth were talking about trying to get our baby Elaine to read like 1,000 books before kindergarten or something like that. And so he goes, oh, that's awesome. And so whenever he gets shipments of books for kids and he has extras, he'll bring them over to help Elaine get to her 1,000 books by kindergarten. It's not like the biggest thing in the world, but he cares. He's starting by caring about your neighbor. So start caring and do good. I know I've said that a million times, but you have to repeat yourself for people to know what you're saying. Start caring. And so it's good to have people like this in your life. And there's also a distinct advantage to them being close in proximity. Check out this next verse in Proverbs. It's Proverbs 27:10. There we go. Do not forsake your friend and the friend of your father, and do not go to your brother's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. Now just imagine how cool it would be if you had a brother that was really close, like living in your basement. How sweet would that be? Which I'm lucky enough to have. But the idea of this proverb is that it is like having somebody close by is extremely helpful. This has played out a couple times in my life with my neighbors. So a few weeks back, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks back, I hear a knock on the door, and I go answer the door, and it's my neighbor across the street. His name's Dave. And he goes, Simon, I got a problem. Come look at this. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I come out, and he had a tree limb on his house. It smashed like the back side of his house. It smashed his deck and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, Dave, I am so sorry that this happened to you. And then within 2 hours, I had my crew at his house getting that tree limb off his house. We tarped it off so that way there's no further water damage because it was raining that night. So we tarped it off. We cleared it up, and we were able to help him out. And he did get lucky that his neighbor across the street owns a tree service. Like, yes, he did get lucky with that. But also, at the same time, the point of this proverb is true, that the proximity matters. He was able to just go across the street, knock on the door, and I was like, dude, we're going to help you out. Proximity matters. And then same guy, Dave. This was actually really cool. So last year, or maybe partially this year. But within the last year or so, both of my grandparents on my dad's side passed away. It was really sad. And we came home one time. We were in like our shirts and ties and everything. And he came out and he was like, hey man, like what happened? And I was like, hey, my grandpa died. And he was like, dude, Simon, I'm so sorry that happened to you. What was one of your favorite memories of your grandpa? It was a really cool thing. Just he was right there across the street. The proximity mattered. I didn't have to go on a phone call for someone across the country or whatever, which I did do, but also the dude right across the street. The proximity mattered several times. One more example of why proximity matters. The storm that happened like maybe a month or a month and a half ago that was a ton of lightning. They said there was like tornadoes or whatever. We have some friends, Nick and LaPria are their names. They've been here a couple times. Some of you might know them. But their house doesn't have a basement. And so when that storm was coming through, everyone was like, get in the basement, get in the basement. And LaPria's brother lives across the state in Detroit. We live right down the road. And so we were like, hey, if you need a basement to come in, just come in our basement. And the idea here that proximity matters when you care about your neighbors and you're available and open to them. The proximity matters. The speed matters. So, number 2. And none of these points, by the way, it doesn't take an expert theologian to really exegete the whole Bible to come up with this. Like, be there. There's the old saying, be where your feet are, if you've heard that. Like, when you're there, you see your neighbors, you can care for them, you're right there. It's important. However, you don't want to be there too much. Check out this proverb. It's Proverbs 25, 16 and 17. Listen to this. If you find honey, eat just enough. Too much honey and you will vomit. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house. Too much of you and he will hate you. This is a fair warning that if you are excessive, people won't like it. Back to my neighbors on my left side, Kevin. So they have a little daughter, and she's awesome. She's really cool. I love when she will scooter by or bike by, and she'll stop and say hi. But when we first moved in, we were brand new, and she was just so gung-ho about it. It was crazy. It seemed like I couldn't, if this is the edge of my house and I went like this, she was there. It was like, whoa, relax. And now she's really good at it now. I love when I see her, she'll just bike up and start talking to me like, hey, we went to Michigan Adventure. It was really fun. The orange slide was cool. The pink slide was too scary. I don't know, whatever it is. And we're able to have that conversation. And then she's like, all right, well, I got to get going now. And then she'll just bike along. And it's awesome. But the point of this proverb is, if you are that weird, uncomfortable, annoying neighbor, it's not cool. And so, my last and third final point is don't be weird about it. And I have had this advice for Christians for years when people have asked advice about almost anything in Christianity. How much better would people think about Christians if we just weren't so weird about it? It depends on any part of Christianity that you could be thinking about. Just be a person. Be a normal person that cares, that does good, that is there, and you're not weird about it. How about that? That would be the bee's knees for having a neighbor. If we could do this, it would be awesome. If all of us at Restore Church could be neighbors like this, where we truly care, we get to know them, we're there when we have the opportunity, to help, we do it, and we're there for them. That is really what we want. And so, that being said, we as Christians, and I know that there could be you could be somewhere on the spectrum of you've been a believer, a Christian, a Jesus follower for many years. You could be not a Jesus follower yet, you still have questions. You could be just starting following Jesus. If you're a Jesus follower, this is a way where you can represent Jesus to your neighbor, how you're called to be a good neighbor. And so, my question, if you're not yet a Jesus follower, maybe you still have some questions, you don't have everything figured out. Think about what you are representing to your neighbor, how you're representing it to your neighbor, and think about, is that better than if I try to represent Jesus to my neighbor? If I try to do the things that Jesus has called us to do? Truly think about it. Think about which option is truly better for my life, for my neighbor, and my community. And so, that is it. I do not have the most genius thesis ever on this sermon. I have very simple points. Start caring and do good. Be there and don't be weird about it. I'm going to pray, and then Samuel's going to come up and lead us in some worship, and then we're going to have some time of communion. So pray with me. Father, thank you that you've given us the book of Proverbs. Thank you that you've shown us how to live wise and live smart. I pray for Restore Church as a group of people that we can be that in our neighborhoods, that we can be neighbors that care. We do good when we have the opportunity, and we're not too weird about it. So thank you very much for that. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.